Okay, thanks, Mohsin. I'll start then. Hello, everyone. It's really nice to open today's case study sessions. Hope you have a very insightful day ahead. The discussion we'll have today is based on a very real life case study. So it's all about finding the right data, right tools, right strategy to ensure the insights which come out of them are used for enhancing the efficiency of doing business and of course improving customer experience. Both go hand in hand. Myself, Umesh Chopra, I'm a market intelligence manager at Sharjah Corp. Just to give a brief perspective of who we are a grocery retailer, a locally grown brand established back in 1977, the first cooperative in UAE. And we have seen, because we have been here for quite some time, we have seen both data getting accumulated to now using data, that same data in the most hyper personalized manner as much as possible. So while the expansion has happened, I mean, we just started with one store, and post 2017, we have really expanded into more number of branches, more number of customers, more number of channels. E-commerce has really seen a growth. And in terms of business as well, we have gone into a B2B business, we have gone on mall retailing business. But the core aim as a retailer, as a grocery retailer, has remained the same. That is to satisfy the customer needs and aim for a sustainable growth. And that, I mean, it's very simple idea, but it's very important that this should never change. With that in mind, let's understand what provoked us, especially in 2021, post-COVID, to focus even more on data. To start off, at the beginning of 2021, we had to face a market reality. We found out that we were expecting 2021 to be a great year in terms of people spending more, especially in grocery. I mean, we're seeing why will people stop eating stuff? But it was not the case. There were much fewer shopping trips. Uh, it was not the result of increased uh, basket value. It was just reduced shopping trips, and people wanted to stick to same store. That also decreased. So it was 75% in 2019. People used to visit same store time and again. Now it has reduced to 51%. So in summary, shoppers in grocery space are now making prudent decisions between need to have and nice to have. And then the thinking starts from where to buy. So while this is important, but it is a counterintuitive to a grocery shopping. So according to, I'm sure that many of you would have heard Professor Daniel Kahneman, his book on thinking fast and slow. He talks about that grocery shopping will eventually become more like an autopilot. But sadly, COVID changed that. Now, what happened is that now both manufacturers as well as retailers they need to continuously invest, and that too intelligently, in physical presence and mental salience, both at the same time. And what also changed is that now each customer is creating his or her own multitudes of data. So we can't have the same strategy applied to a group of customers. We can't create those segments. We can't bucket people into segments. Each customer is becoming different. Each of them is reacting and resulting into an evolution in their own domain. Everybody is rationalizing the behavior. So in essence, what became very important to us is that we need to understand each customer very separately and take actions accordingly. That became very important. And we found out there are two ways to do it. One is to push for more loyalty. And second is to start taking more informed decisions. And we found out that these four buckets were the most important one: price, promo, assortment, and visibility for us, both online and offline. So I'll start with loyalty. So we found out that we wanted to come up with a good loyalty program, and we were quite late in the market, I would say. But that was a good thing because we could understand what were the good and bad in the market. So we identified five key elements. We wanted to keep it super simple so that people come in and go out very easily. They become part of the program and they can earn, they can redeem very easily. We wanted to keep it simple. But at the same time, we wanted to use loyalty program only as a tool. There was an engagement strategy built, which was aligned to the loyalty program, not the other way around. We wanted rewarding not to be only based on money, but it should be emotionally linked. It should be something, if person earns reward, he should be happy about that he has earned reward from Sharjah Corp. And it should not be about that I earned today. Let me just forget about it tomorrow. Uh, Fourth thing, it should be hyper personalized. Time and again, I have repeated this that it has to be each individual treated differently. and that we do. We analyze each and every customer separately. And last not the least, acquisition and retention both have to go hand in hand. You can't do one after the other. You have to build strategy on both space at one time. With all these key ingredients identified, we launched a loyalty program in June 2021. And we kept it very simple from an earning perspective, 101 point and redeem on the go. And I'm happy to say that today we are having a strong customer base from June until now of 140,000 customers, and that too within Sharjah only, and still growing. And what we understood is that because we took a stance of having a proper customer engagement plan and not only having a loyalty program per se, that is the reason we could achieve this today. So a proper customer engagement plan, let me go through what are the key ingredients of that. So what we took in is first and foremost is a free membership. So we said that customer lifetime value is much more important than membership fee. We gave them welcome points. Why not? I mean, encourage them to become a new customer. Then we created promotions wherein we were giving them extra opportunities to earn. So give them more price discounts, but also give them point multipliers. We were traditionally considered as a very local brand, but we wanted to celebrate inclusivity. So new acquisitions were focused around the same. So we had Wife Appreciation Day, we have Women's Day, we were celebrating Indian festivals, we are celebrating even national days. So we were celebrating inclusivity so that people can feel that they are connected to this whole community feeling. And last not the least, we automated hyper-personalized campaigns. So we started celebrating customers' birthday week. We started celebrating customers' anniversaries with us. How many, if they spent more than a year or more than 2 months with us, we started giving them rewards based on that. So people feel connected that, you know, this company cares for me. And that's why on my birthday, they're saying, okay, come to shop from me, you will get some extra points and we will celebrate your birthday. So those personalization has to be automated. You can't manually conduct those personalization on a daily basis. It has to be automated with a proper system inbuilt. All of this was designed around the self-reported or zero or first-party data. And yesterday also we were having this conversation that, you know, by 2022, even the Bs of the world, Safari, Chrome, Firefox, all of them are transitioning away from third-party cookies. And if that's the case, we have taken a stance that we will focus on collecting the zero or first-party data, and we have put in real efforts both in terms of technological as well as traditional way of capturing this data, talking to people, asking them for certain stuff, stopping them at the branches, asking for stuff which is much more reliable. So what we believe is that when marketers use inferred data to customize communication, which is second party or third party data or unobserved data, there's a very real chance that they will get it wrong. So third party data is amassed from a host of unrelated and unreliable sources, and we are transitioning away from it. We are relying only on zero or first party or reported data, self-reported data by customers. So in the end, creating a systematic, engaging process for collecting a zero-party data or a first-party data, and is a great way to build that trust and then continue engaging over time. So this was all about how we engage with customers, how we build efficiencies there. Now, the second point which I raised was that we started taking more informed decisions. And when I say informed decisions, we build a business effectiveness solution. And when we built this solution, we took into account that let's not make a solution which is only business intelligence. Let's make a solution which is easily accessible to all. That means to a C-suite level, to a person who is working in branch as a chef boy, and it is accessible across all platforms. So we created chatbots so that people can simply type, okay, what is my store sales for this particular? I will show you some examples. We built it business intelligence, which was more of a, I would say, like a on the fly versus a self-serve products as well. So business intelligence give you a platform, but a builder kind of a stuff, you can actually create your own interactive solution. You can also create your own dashboards for that matter. So I'll spend a considerable amount of time on this slide. In essence, what BI did for us. In summary, it helped us take actionable insight and informed decisions. But there are certain elements to it that how BI is helping us. First and foremost is a sales dynamic analysis. So We are able to get immediate response to any negative trends which is happening at the level of SKUs and not at the overall level. We are able to engage in corrective action basis the same. On stock management, we are able to control out of stocks. We are able to manage them to increase our sales, and we have seen a considerable increase in 5 to 6% of our sales just by managing the out of stock equation. We are able to do any kind of adjustment, identification, corrections as well. This is the same. The second thing is assortment optimization. So we could immediately analyze any kind of new product launches. So we don't have to wait for a long period. We just start analyzing the product as soon as it comes into a foray. It gets an assortment optimization tool and it gets a linkage of that. And we are able to analyze in effectiveness what is the future of this particular assortment. In terms of price positioning, we are able to immediately do any kinds of price correction at a chain level and within a category. And it's not only overall correction, but also price understanding. And we can create any kind of scenarios around it. And we could take any kind of action which is related to elasticity, promotion, etc. On the supply management front, we could effectively prepare, anything which could be helpful for supply negotiations. So sitting in a room, we have a dashboard. Okay, I open it, I play around with it, and your negotiations are much faster. We could justify any kind of a calculation of, let's say, a supplier shelf share versus sales share. We could pilot sales of any kind of a new SKU management. So that all could be negotiated right on the table in front of a dashboard. We could do shelf management. We could understand whether an SKU is getting fair share of shelf, whether it is resulting in loss of sale, whether I need to optimize my shelf space, all could be done. Then on the promo management, each and every promo, not at an overall promo level, but at a SKU level is evaluated. We could manage what kind of assortment and what kind of quantities I need to order for the next promo based upon the history of the promotions. That actually resulted in increased profitability as well. On the personal terminal management, this was more operational led. We could effectively manage category managers as well as cashiers. We could reduce the queues at cashier terminals, and we could also do shelf availability control. Last not the least, we could do efficient category neighborhoods. We could do cross category sales. And we could effectively manage our loyalty programs. The whole thing we did around loyalty program, all kind of RFM analysis was all inbuilt in this PI. So overall, one solution which could help us run the complete operations more efficiently. And like I said, we had this chatbot. So on the chatbots, you can simply say sales. Okay, he asks, okay, what kind of sales? I say, okay, shop sales. Like, okay, which shop? I'd say this shop. Okay, how many days? I say previous 3 days. What do you want? Graph, histogram, Excel, and there you have a graph. So everybody, especially the C-suits of the organization, when they have this kind of access, they could easily turn around, conversation. So they are in a meeting and they see the chat and they're okay, here it is. No need for presentations. No need for, asking somebody to handhold their particular information. Next, the store manager. So store manager is given to the branch managers, to the coordinators, etc. The main thing is, I see there are a lot of points, but for me, third point was the most important thing. I could create competition between stores. I could say that you, on this particular category, you are ranked 4th. On this particular product, you are at 3. So they are also engaged. And they are also in essence saying, okay, I want to reach first. I want to do all of this. Other things are there. They can track the KPIs. They can see SKUs in stocks, and it is not resulting in sales, so they can replace. It has an integrated scanner linked to our ERP system, so they can check the pricing, etc. So a lot of stuff could be done again on a mobile-based application. But all comes to the fact that everything has to be linked to the fact that it has to talk about single source of truth. So what we understood is that it has to be a cyclic process, and it has to be, in this graph, it has to go anti-clockwise. So it has to start with your touch points. So if your touch points are not upgraded, your POS machines, your customer care services in terms of your collecting the data, mobile app, websites, etc., then you can't have the correct data. So touch points have to be the most upgraded one. To make the experience as seamless as possible, and as well as the data should be as clean as possible. Second comes is a loyalty management solution. So you need to invest in a loyalty management solution because all the engagement activities you have planned. If your loyalty management solution is more traditional and can't handle those engagement activities, then all the things, all the action which you want to take, you can't do it during and even after enrollments. Then comes your data analytics. So if these 2 points are done well, then your data analytics is much easier. You can create reports, you can create dashboards, you can create segmentation, you can do all kind of machine learning exercise, etc. And this then flows into a marketing automation. That means if you have the correct data, if you have the right analytics, then you can do those hyper personalization which I'm talking about. You can create and visualize personalized customer journeys at the end of the day to send right message at right time and at right place. So that is the crux of how we work at Sharjah Corp, how we deal with data analytics, and how we are tackling the efficiencies part of the equation. Thanks, everyone. I think I stick to the time, Hussein. This is me. You can connect over LinkedIn, and I'm happy to answer your questions now or later. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. If we click just the chat, thank you so much. If we click just the chat area, you can close the presentation sharing, please.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you have a look at the questions, let's go to Jose. Thanks, Umesh. This work sounds amazing, beneficial. Let me give him microphone till you read the question. Jose, you are co-host now.
Thank you so much, Mizan. Good morning, everyone. And
Good morning,
thank you, Umesh. This is, sounds amazing work. Congrats for that to your team. I was thinking you were saying that it's zero-party data, and inevitably, when you're working with a huge set of customers, on the rewards and the part, inevitably there will be a percentage. It's not 100%, so there will be a small percentage that will not be accurate. So how did the team deal with that? How did the organization deal with that when inevitably the number wasn't correct for that customer and the customer isn't happy?
Yeah, it's a very rightful question, and to be fair and frank, we have dealt with certain kind of situations. And what we encourage customers, see, customer experience at the end of the day, it need not be very technical. It's about dealing one-on-one with that customer. If certain customer is not happy with a certain kind of a personalization because of the incorrect data, what we do is we use our digital platforms and we use our traditional way of communication, and we are actually pushing and encouraging people to update their data in a right manner, so that they can get as much personalization as possible. So we have done a lot of social media activities. I can send you the link offline, etc., wherein we are asking people that, go update your data. You will get better rewards. You will get better promotions. You will get better facilities from us. And it's your data at the end of the day. We are working for you. So that's how we have dealt with it. Time and again, of course, there are certain customers who are not happy at all. And that is a time when your customer service comes in and tells them, okay, we understand your concern. Let us try to solve it. Tell us what went wrong, and then correct it accordingly. That's that. I mean, nothing fancy, but that's how we have done it.
I fully agree, Umesh. We have to share that responsibility with the users. And exactly. For me, I have many few users. For me, it's internal. I'm not dealing with customers, but at the end of the day, they are the ones who know specifically if that number is right or wrong. So it has to come from them, and you have to motivate them to come help us.
I mean, I can give you one example, Jose, that we had a certain thing like duplicated customers, because they had given same number for 2 accounts. This was the start of the program, and the program was not that developed to catch these kind of things. Now, this particular customer, considering he is created as a duplicate customer, he couldn't earn points in a same manner. So what we did is we simply called those customers and said that, your 2 accounts are created in the same name. Let us know what action you want to take. And based on the action, what they said, we took a call.
Yeah, and it's an investment for the future, right? So exactly. The customer will be there for years, so it's worth investing the money to clean it up. Exactly. The customer will be happier that way. That's exactly. Great approach, Umesh. All the best.
Thank you. Same to you.
Thanks a lot. Another question from Deep Priya from Khalij Time. Deep, I give you microphone if you want to clarify further. Go ahead.
Hi, Mesh. Great presentation. You've done a lot of work behind it, although it finished quickly, but I'm sure it was years of work getting all this sorted. My question was simple. What does your MarTech stack look like, and how much of it is produced in-house, and how much of that tech stack is acquired from vendors?
Yeah, so we had this discussion, Priya, yesterday as well in one of the panels. That do we really? I mean, us is one of the things. I mean, every company behaves differently. Like for us, we don't have a big data team, a big technical team in house. So we rely on a lot of things from outside. We rely on consultants. It is a trial and it's an iterative process. So sometimes we have failed. And then we have gone ahead and really took a stance and evaluated different kind of companies who could help. And the best thing to move forward for this kind of a equation is that you work along with your IT. Like we are not an IT expert. I'm a business guy. So the best thing is me and IT, we sit together and evaluate these organizations. They talk technical, I talk business. If both the things are met, then we go ahead with them. So that's how we do it. We don't do a lot of in-house production. We have tried and we haven't succeeded because we don't have a big team.
Perfect. Same thoughts. Just wanted to resonate those. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I love this part when you are asking questions. It gives value and meaning. 1 year we are working behind the screens as a virtual robot, but now we are feeling different, that we are human and we are interacting together, regardless of being online, offline, on site. Now, Pradeep from Dubai Islamic Insurance, I give you microphone to clarify your question. So you see the question as well.
Yeah. Hi, Amish.
Hello, Pradeep. Okay, and let me read your question. What is your take on grocery delivery platform which have a tech-first approach, and how have your recent initiative around data analytics and AI help you to cater to your customer?
Yeah, just to provide a context, actually, so I actually was one of the founding members of a grocery delivery platform called Swan, which is right now operating out of Dubai and doing quite well. So obviously, being a traditional typical retailer, right? Obviously, you realize a need to kind of compete with these kind of grocery delivery platforms, and you had to take certain initiatives. So what's your take on this overall?
We believe in partnering rather than competing. So all these new platforms, of course, they have an advantage that they are starting afresh. We are a brick and mortar retailer. So what we have done is, and to be frank, that we have our own brick and mortar, which we are making it much stronger year on year. I mean, recently, 1 month back, we opened 2 new stores. We are now at 46. But at the e-commerce level, we have our own e-commerce, which we are also investing and building. But at the same time, we are partnering with the likes of your Talabat, the InstaShop, Instamart, and all those guys as well, El Grosser, to make sure that we are there. Because at the end of the day, we want to serve the needs of the consumer. So data analytics, AI, yes, they help because we continuously not only invest in partnering with them, but also we start evaluating. So we understand that a customer of an El Grosser might be completely different from the customer which I have at the branch. So same way, like I evaluate and personalize my communication, my strategies with my own customer, I try to push those kind of strategies through El Grosser, because I tell them that I understand this customer, even you would understand this customer. So let's together work on a strategy which can be built for that particular customer. So that's what we have done. We have not competed with them. We have kind of partnered with them.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. So any other questions? We have 2 minutes.